Hello, it's Charlotte's sister C. Ferrell, host of Powered by Age, Canada's longest-running senior-led podcast that invites you to do what you love.
This podcast is for you if you love writing or telling stories, if you love sharing poetry or doing interviews.
This podcast is for you if you love working on ways to create age-friendly cities.
This podcast is for you if you love learning how to tame technology and get more out of virtual events, if you love finding more ways to share your heritage or traditions.
If you love any of these things, you can go beyond listening and join our weekly podcast group. Simply email pbaafc@gmail.com and put your name in the subject line. Powered by Age is sponsored by the Government of Canada, New Horizons Grant, the 411 Senior Center Society, and G&F Financial Group. Good morning and welcome to Powered by Age, Canada's longest-running senior-led podcast. Today we are going to be hearing about some exciting research that was done by the STAR Institute at Simon Fraser University, along with the 411 Senior Center, which is one of our sponsors. I'm Charlotte Ferrell, your host, and I gratefully acknowledge that our podcast takes place on the unceded territories of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh people. And I will start with asking Leslie and Ramona to introduce yourselves.
Hey, I'm Leslie Hebert. I live in New Westminster, obviously retired. I still teach English as a second language online, and I also write short stories and poetry.
Okay. Ramona?
Hi, I'm Ramona Srinivasan. I'm a retired professor, Mumbai University, a newcomer to Canada, and I have just moved to Vancouver recently from Mississauga. I really like being on Powered by Age because we discuss a wide variety of interesting and inspiring topics. Thank you.
Yes, and another thing we do is periodically we have some of the podcasters with more than 44 people that have at different times or the other participated with us, but some lead a presentation on a topic. So Dr. Ramona is going to be leading one on brain health. Leslie has led one on travel writing and gathering some other writers together. We look at what people are doing in the community post-retirement and invite them to be on our program. Today, our special guests are from the STAR Institute. Tell us what that is, Andrew. Introduce yourself.
Okay, I thank you, Charlotte. The STAR Institute is an institute at Simon Fraser University, of which I'm director, and it is not the university of the STAR Institute. And the STAR Institute is there to support the development and implementation of technologies to support the health and well-being of seniors and people as they grow older. So that's what the STAR Institute is about. We have a relationship with Seniors 411 to work with them, and maybe Hannah can talk about that in a bit more depth. But we've been working with Seniors 411 for a few years now to develop this agenda around technology and aging, given that we live in a increasingly digital world that everybody needs to be able to participate fully in the digital world that we live in. So what do we need to do to help people to connect? And also what do we need to do in terms of developing technologies that are more user-friendly, more useful, more affordable, et cetera, et cetera.
That connects with one of the issues that a committee within the 411 Senior Center is working on, which is just collecting examples of digital divide issues, things that keep people from being able to participate in surveys or to take a virtual examination. So, Hannah, would you explain this wonderful way, the community-based research that you used?
Yeah, hi, my name is Hannah, and I am a community-based researcher at the STAR Institute and at 411 Senior Center. I'm embedded at the 411 Senior Center to better understand the life daily lives of seniors, program staff, and volunteers at 411. I guess one of the biggest factors to better understand some of the challenges and barriers that 411 is experiencing. And the biggest one so far is the digital divide and how COVID-19 has really exacerbated that issue. And it actually has increased the disparity and inequity among seniors because we've transitioned to a digital platform, and many seniors are being left out. And so part of my research, part of why I'm there is to how do we make information more accessible and more equitable, which is like a really big project, and it's never ending. We did we're constantly putting out mini flyers. First one was dealing with the vaccine card, the provincial vaccine card, and how the government has rolled that out, expecting that a lot of people have access to digital tools and digital technology and internet infrastructure, but that's not necessarily true. Not just seniors, but there are a lot of low-income families that do not have internet infrastructure or smartphones. So a lot of also the information that's provided is not very transparent or very clear or used in simple language. So that's become an issue as well. And there's also information overload. What is accurate information and what is misinformation? And there's deciphering that has also become really challenging and has created a lot of fear and anxiety around that too. So we've heard the community concerns around the BC vaccine card. Sorry, there's a big dump truck just passing by my back alley. So we've been listening to community concerns, and we thought that this would be a perfect opportunity to capture what is happening and what are the local organizations doing on the ground to reduce that gap that government isn't fulfilling. And so 411 staff and the volunteers and the community members have worked together, and the STAR Institute, we all worked together to create the BC vaccine BC vaccine card report, just to illustrate some of the emerging themes and issues that have come up. We've put together key findings and also some policy recommendations. So it's really a community effort. It wasn't just researchers coming up with these recommendations. It was or coming up with this theme, major themes. We worked together we collectively work together to identify the emerging themes, and we work together to finding creative solutions to reduce the digital divide. But specifically, one aspect of that was the BC vaccine card. That's just the overall summary of what I've been doing.
So now you call what you do a community-based model, describe how community-based model differs from the usual way seniors and others get involved in research.
Yeah, I think Andrew is wanting to scratch the thing on that.
I'll start by comparing it to the usual model of research. So somebody such as myself, and this is the model that, probably I've been involved in many years ago, is where the researcher effectively parachutes into where the community that they're interested in, collects data, and then disappears, and nobody hears anything about it again. And they publish the results in an academic journal somewhere, and that's it. That was how research was designed. And indeed, there's a kind of a school of thought where if you get too involved in the community that you're interested in as a researcher, then you actually contaminate that community in some way. With those are words that I've used heard many times, right? So, however, I kind of didn't like that approach right from the right from the start, and a lot of my work has right from my early career was very much involved in working with organizations, whether they're service providers or advocacy groups or whatever, to use research in a way that has both the academic things that I'm interested in as a researcher, but also has direct value to the organizations that I'm working with, so that we flow information back in a usable form, in an agile way that is in the time scale of the organization. Whereas, most researchers work on huge, long time scales, which isn't relevant to an organization. So that's right. The overall concept of it, anyway.
Yeah, and another big factor is capacity building and also knowledge sharing. It's not just one-way flow. It's as researchers, there's this mentality that we're teaching the community about certain aspects or certain knowledge, but that's not true. It's very reciprocal relationship. I think that's really important, and also building trust with the community members is also really important. A lot of researchers before, and it's still practiced this way too, depending the type of research you do, but a lot of it is very extractive, and I don't know if that's a word. It's extracting a lot of the information, but it's the information doesn't go back. So a lot of the knowledge is kept in the academic vault, and that's what we're trying to push against that. I mean, yes, like we obviously want to produce papers and get it published in the academic realm, but we also want to produce knowledge that is more digestible to the community, and how does this impact the community. And it's kind of best of the both worlds. I love research, but I really love it when research becomes very practical for the community members.
Oh, Ramona, in working with students and communities, how important do you think this approach is?
I think it would be more effective in getting people to know about what you're doing, as opposed to the kind of research that I did for the PhD. That was, like Anna mentioned, it was more about the academic side of it and getting it published and that sort of a thing. But the approach that Andrew is mentioning, I feel that is more value creating, that you're spending your time and effort in making the community get some value about what you're doing, rather than just having it all published in a book and it's going to be in a library and just maybe a few students are going to read it, kind of a thing. So that's what I feel.
You had a diagram, which we can't see in the audio world, but it showed 3 different ways you collected information. Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
There were various ways that we collected information. So it's qualitative research methods and also ethnographic research methods as well, which means that ethnographic research method is that I, as the researcher, embed myself in the community. So even though I'm an SFU employee, I'm actually going into 411, try to go in there every day when I'm not, and really embed myself in the community, getting to know the community members, getting to know the program staff and the volunteers, and really building that relationship. I wouldn't have gotten any of the information that I have and any of the knowledge that I have without not being there. If I was just working at SFU and just going into 411 once in a while, I wouldn't have this very rich source of information. Also learning so much from a lot of the community members as well. I wouldn't have gotten that either. And, I really enjoy going in and listening to people's stories about how they came to Canada, or what are some of how their day is going. And, by daily interactions, you get to know the person's daily life, and you get to kind of get information on some of their struggles. And I think sharing that information and not or sharing your story with other people is often helpful too for the individual, because they share with other people and they're like, oh, I'm also experiencing that. Or for them to share something and I tell them like, yeah, I also struggled with the vaccine, like the Health Gateway app. And I know, and they're really happy to hear it's not just me, and it's not because I'm old, and like you're young and how you're like digital savvy. And I'm like, yeah, I also don't find it user friendly. And I think those are things that, lets people know that it's not, lets people know that it's not just an aging issue, and to get out of that ageist attitude. And like, I think there's an implicit bias that I carry about aging, and I'm a young person, so I don't know what it's like to walk in older person's shoes. But I think being there, I've learned a lot, and I'm constantly learning. But I think my mindset has really shifted on. I'm like, oh yeah, I shouldn't think that way, or I feel like I'm less ageist. I'm working towards being a better advocate for seniors, and yeah, I think it's just an ongoing process for me.
I think you mentioned the word capacity building, and I know an experience that I've had and that other people have had. There's the time when you ask someone about something on their phone and they take your phone, or the worst, they take your mouse. I had an experience with, I was taking a course. I went back to school at 65. I decided I wanted to be a filmmaker. And this person was showing me editing, and he took my mouse. And the second time he did it, I slapped his hand. I thought, oh my God. But it's very insulting. And so I noticed and observed the way that you were working with people. It was very much respect for their person. The capacity to use a device one of the things that you are talking about when you mean capacity building?
I think it's really, I also have the tendency to grab someone's phone and I'm like, oh, let me just do it, but that's not capacity building, right? It's showing how to step-by-step process this. And I think a lot of people are maybe impatient teaching someone something, and I'm always reminded, like I do this with my own parents. When we used to be in the same city, they're located in Winnipeg, and before that I was like, oh, just do it, but then that's not helpful to them, because then they have to rely on me constantly. They're like, how do you do it? How do I do this? How do I do this? Instead of me taking the time to show them. And I think working at 411 has really taught me a value of just be patient. And I think you also have more patience for non-family members. But just teaching them, and I try to be mindful of, like, I won't take your phone, like, here's your phone, and kind of walking them through. Some people prefer, they're like, you just do it for me because I'm never going to use this. There's also that kind of mindset too, but I try to walk people through when they want to learn something, but but it's one of those things, like it has to be repetition with anything you do. You have to constantly do it over and over and over. And I think a lot of classes or programs that are offered, it's not frequent enough that it kind of sticks with you.
How did you go about designing this particular study?
Maybe I can answer that one. Is that it is a very open-ended approach that we've got, and we work it from the ground up. Basically, Hannah was hired to be the embedded researcher, and basically we had a set of objectives that we wanted to do, which was firstly to look at the needs of older adults and in British Columbia, in Vancouver, in respect to technology and issues around the digital divide. So trying to understand that from Hannah's perspective, being on the ground in Seniors 411, but also to provide information to seniors, to Seniors 411 about where they go as a senior center in the future. So it will be moving to new premises, et cetera, et cetera. There's a big interest in how Seniors 411 can continue to provide help and support for the implementation of technology and addressing the digital divide. So maybe kind of providing strategic information as well. So we also have an academic agenda, and this is maybe I can speak to that a bit more, is that, for example, the issues that Hannah has mentioned about adaptation and the use of technology as we get older, understanding that is really valuable, and capturing that and publishing it at an academic level in the journals and et cetera, is as important as the community-based thing. So we've got these different strands going on, and each one of those requires different methods. So we couldn't do this top-down approach and say, well, we want to do X, Y, and Z, we will do it this way. We really have to build it from the ground up. And that's what we're in the process of doing right now. And as long as we have a relationship with Seniors 411, it will continue to evolve.
There were three different ways that I think you talked with some people on the phone. There were some people that were sent a survey, and then there were people that came in during a week where you had boxes set up and stickers. Tell us about the boxes and stickers.
Yeah, I took this as an undergrad. I took a community-based research methods, and I don't like boring surveys. Nobody wants to just read and circle, which we actually did do that. But we wanted to, 411 Senior Center was having a welcome back week after being closed for so long because of the pandemic. So there was a week of various different programs and sessions. And so Sarah, myself, and Andrew thought this would be a great opportunity to introduce people to the STAR Institute and what community-based research is, and myself, and like why am I here? So we had a little in the boardroom. We decided to let people know what community-based research is, to talk about the STAR Institute and my role, and we had, and I like to do very interactive ways to collect information. So to me, like I like seeing things rather than like I like visualization. And so I thought, let's do vote by sticker. And there are some drawbacks to vote by sticker. There's some, but to me, that was a very engaging way to get people to participate in a survey. And it was a very rapid assessment of where a lot of the barriers and challenges are with specific to the BC vaccine card. And based on that, we were able to gather and find major themes, which was great. We had a great turnout. I think people really like that interactive aspect. It's great to engage people and not just have people read a piece of paper and circle things. Next time I would do differently is buy bigger stickers.
Leslie, I know you've been involved with, all of us get these stickers to vote on different things for Vancouver or give our opinions of things. What do you think about that approach as compared with fill out a form and email it back in?
Yeah, it sounds like kind of fun. And I can see how it would engage people. As an ESL teacher, lots of my methods used a lot of sort of physical interaction, visual interaction. And I think it would be very good actually for people that don't speak English as a first language as well, that visual component.
And then for counting, I know sometimes people like things, to be every question standard in the same way because it's easier for counting. But how did you find, how simple was it for you to compare the results from things that were answered by sticker?
The data collection aspect wasn't too difficult of a process. I just use good old-fashioned Excel and just counted. But yeah, it wasn't. What's nice about Vote by Sticker is that it's very easy to get. It's a very quick assessment and it's very easy to gather data, whereas surveys, because the survey wasn't online and we did in-person surveys, so that made it a bit more tricky. But yeah, I think that's about it. I don't know if Andrew, you have anything more to add.
Yeah, research methods. Not to get into the technicalities of it, is that it's horses for courses. You use the method that is appropriate to the information that you want to get out. So I've done research which is highly quantitative in my time, right? I've done surveys, very large surveys, et cetera, using different methods, whether it's telephoning people or Zooming people or getting them to fill online things. So what we're trying to do right now with the work that Hannah's involved in is trying to articulate particularly the problems that people are encountering as they emerge, and that requires a very quick turnaround. So, for example, with the vaccine passport project, we basically said that, well, we've got to do this project in about 3 weeks, right? So compare that with the typical research model, which is probably 3 years to do something like that. It's just a completely different thing. So one has to be very pragmatic about it. And when you're feeding back the results, you have to be aware of the limitations of the research, particularly when you're talking about academic journals and stuff like that. But whatever is appropriate within the circumstances that you're doing the research and the type of information that you want to get out of it will shape how you do it. If we were doing a project on nuclear physics, we won't be speaking to too many people, right? But if we're talking about how people have experienced problems of using the vaccine passport, obviously, we need to speak to people. We need to understand exactly what those problems are, and hear it from the ground, the ground up. And that's the great thing about Hannah being physically virtually in the 411 space. She can hear things as they emerge, and that's why we did the vaccine passport project. We're hearing things about, people increasingly as they're getting older involved in the gig economy, for example.
Yes.
And we're hearing stories about, taxi drivers have now got to become Uber drivers, right? And if you're going to be an Uber driver, you need to be able to use the smartphone technology in a way that people might not be used to. So these are things that we're hearing, and we said, well, these are important to real people. What do we need to do from a research perspective to provide useful information to people?
Yeah, I want to make a comment that's analogous to what you said about the Uber driver having to use the different technology to what has happened with a lot of seniors who've been asked to give their consultation on other things. It drives me up the wall because it's like saying, go to the green door, paint a red circle on it, open the red circle, drop it down into an envelope, read it, and then give us your comments. I mean, and there are some things where they've asked for a consultative process. A lot of people have been learning Zoom. Our senior center, the 411 Senior Center, as well as the other senior centers, have had ways that they've taught people how to use Zoom. We've had some of our podcasters teach other people, again, with a similar device, a phone, a laptop, or computer. They used a platform that no one had used before. And so you had to download this platform into the computer. A lot of seniors have got 2 gigs of data. So they get very worried about if you have to download something that's going to use data. And then aside from downloading it, people don't have printers. I think the people that assume that you could just download something to a survey to read it don't realize, well, the person doesn't have a printer, or if the printer's out of paper, or if they're, so that's another barrier. And then to go back into a different system and give, vote from how likely are you from a scale of 1 to 5 to do X, Y, and Z. So knowing that the turnout for some surveys have been less than was anticipated, I think it's this complexity. So I like the idea that you built into your design that someone would be on the ground. Yeah, they say for everything, boots on the ground. Do you have boots hat on? Feet on the ground, talking with people, observing, making relationships. And then you call some people and you use the newsletter. You use each one of the communication methods that the 401 Senior Center already had in place to contact. Imagine in a 3-week period, it was 519 people.
It was 514, but it wasn't me that did all the calling. I think I did about between 30 to 40 calls, but majority of that was senior volunteers that made the phone calls. And a lot of them the main priority was that the phone call was made. The primary reason why we did the phone call was to make sure that the community members were aware of the vaccine card, did have the vaccine card, and if not, how can we help them get the vaccine card? And it was just another step, easy to say, do you have a paper format or do you have a digital format, which let us know quickly what people preferred, or if they didn't have a digital format, then why not but majority of the phone calls were done by the amazing senior volunteers. And yeah, we found that the majority of the seniors we reached out to did have their vaccine card, and they obtained it. They obtained a physical copy, which they all have complained that it's not very. It's not a long-term solution, and that the fact that it was a piece of paper was really baffling. And it's the government really dropped the ball on that. Why couldn't they laminate it? And then that fell on a lot of the local communities to step up and resize it and laminate it so it becomes more permanent solution. I'll say that in quotations. And now we're moving on to the federal vaccine, and now you have to go through the the Health Gateway app, which I've been avoiding, but it's inevitable, so we all have to do it. But I believe that you could call and get one as well, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be a piece of paper again. But how is that? Why aren't people listening? People meaning the decision makers. I don't know why they think that piece of paper is enough. It gets wet. The QR codes could get worn out. Why does that getting the lamination? Why does that fall on the individual? Sometimes you have to go to. I know that a lot of seniors have gone to Staples and gotten it professionally done, but that costs money. Why does that fall on the individual? And I know that a lot of local MLA offices and some smaller community-based organizations are doing it for their community members for free. But why is the government relying on underfunded, under-resourced small community organizations? It's very frustrating.
Can I make a comment about that? Because I think there's two elements to it. Firstly, that I don't want to be particularly critical of the BC government or any other provincial government around Canada, is that they've had to deal with an unprecedented situation. However, I think things could have been done in a more proactive way to anticipate some of the issues around this. And I totally agree, Hannah, that there are practical things which they could have done. And to be honest, probably there's a cost element in this, that it's easier and more less costly to the government just to say, okay, yeah, we'll just do this online primarily, and you can print it out at home, et cetera, et cetera. So there's probably that thinking behind it. But equally, there is now a kind of an assumption that everybody has smartphones, they're going to use that. That's the main way that people are going to use a vaccine passport. And the world, unfortunately, well, I say unfortunately, is moving in that direction. And I think I mentioned to various people the other day, I went to see the Vancouver Whitecaps soccer team the other day, and I bought a ticket and then found out I can only use that ticket with a smartphone. You cannot use it any other way.
To a lot of people.
So there are people now who are excluded from going to the Vancouver Whitecaps to watch soccer games, right? Because there's an assumption that everybody's got a smartphone. So the world moves in this kind of way forward with these things interacting in the way we use technology, and unfortunately, certain people are going to get left behind by that. And that's what we have to really address if we're going to avoid this digital divide. And technology is always moving. So somebody sooner or later is going to get left behind by it.
Yeah, it's not only people that get left behind because they don't understand the technology or they can't afford it, but I actually resent the fact that I feel as if I'm being forced to get a smartphone, and I don't want one. I've got a little flip phone, which is fine. It's cheap. I don't have to pay for data, and yet I can't put any access cards or any ID or anything up on the screen.
Some people mention that at the seniors' day, that they resent the idea that you have to have that particular type of technology in order to access things as simple as being able to go to a movie or a restaurant or a game.
Yeah, it's interesting that, even our younger generations are talking about, it's just a lot to juggle. Like, why couldn't it be a physical card? Even it's not just older folks that are saying that. It's also younger people, like younger generations that are also saying, yes, there's some people that do everything digitally, but there are also other people that want tangible physical card, kind of like when you're showing your piece of ID, it's easy to just have all your card, not hold your phone and the card, and you have to look for your QR code. And, it's become a very, I don't know how long we have to continue doing this. I think when I was on the radio, someone said this was only supposed to be a temporary solution, but I don't think it is. I think maybe it is temporary, but what is temporary? How long is it going to be? And the question is what's a lot of seniors have expressed what's next? That constant fear and anxiety of like, okay, so there's the provincial and now there's going to be a federal. Does it mean that the provincial card is going to get phased out and taken over by the federal? There's all these questions, but no one's really addressing the answers. And it's a bit of a chaos. And Andrew's right. Like, I do agree that, it's unprecedented time, and, and the government is also like probably going, they're just adapting as quickly as they can. And, but I think, moving forward, it's been now, moving forward, we'll have better ways. Who knows? I don't have answers.
Well, I think one of the things that is very, very valuable for feeding back to the government is your study. And right in the time period where another mandate is coming out to have the federal ID. So having that data might help people who are working on approaches to getting it to people, using something more community-based, to know that just what they had, making it a mandate, is not enough. I think the speed of that information, do you know, aside from the press releases about your study, have any copies of it been sent to any elements of the government that deals with these cards or mandates?
I can speak to that. Is that we as a project, the relationship we have with 411, we're still developing our communications channels. So for example, Hannah, a couple of weeks ago, spent most of the week being interviewed by the press and news outlets, etc., about the research that was done. We are sending the information to as many decision makers as possible. So, but a key element of the work that we're doing is this outreach and communication, so that people who are making decisions about these things are getting that feedback as well.
Yeah, I think that's important. We've had podcasts where seniors have wanted to know more about the advocacy role, advocacy regarding transportation, accessibility, residential care. So I think this is another area that, as you show people, whose desk does that fall on? That's a question. Whose portfolio is that? Who's the person that we, use our flip phones or whatever phones we have to call them up and say, listen, we'd like for you to look at some of the results, some of the solutions that were indicated. What were those 7? I think there were 7 main pointers or issues that your research focused on that people would want to have paid attention to.
So the 7 emerging themes that came out of the focus group discussion that we had, just to the digital divide, there was information overload, language barrier. That was the biggest one as well. Not everyone speaks English or French, and that was there's Canada, BC is very diverse in population. I know that COVID-19, the 183, the government number, does provide inclusive language, which is great, but there's not all local communities have the capacity to provide different language services. Privacy and security is another big factor. Not everyone knows what a QR code is and what the business, the person that's scanning your QR code, what information do they see? So there was a lack of information about that. And also the Health Gateway app, it came out at the same time. So people were really concerned about, with the Health Gateway app, if I went through that channel to get my vaccine passport, what information are they seeing? Because the Health Gateway app stores all your medical information, like all your medical appointments and what type of drugs you've prescribed to. And a lot of people were worried, like, do they see that information? So that wasn't very clear. There was a lot of anxiety and fear around what's next, what's going to happen. Also asking for help could be also very daunting. And there was a lot of, another thing that we picked up on was complex terminologies. So there was a lot of technical jargons that were being thrown around, and we still use the word between vaccine card, vaccine passport, we use it interchangeably, but that also confused people because some people had the vaccine. When people talk about a card, they were pulling out their vaccine card that they had received when they got their Pfizer or Moderna, the vaccination, so that with the date and the lot number, like people were showing that. But that's, all these terms are just getting very confusing. And it's, and also, like, why passport? Like, who created that? Did media take that and just, I've done some research on, I've typed in BC vaccine passport. The government doesn't even use that language. So where did the passport come from? So that's just become very interesting. And those are the major themes that the group have identified. And then based on that, we came up with the survey questions and the major findings. And based on that as well, we were able to put together the recommendations.
So I was going to ask, one of the questions we had for today is, if you had a seat at the table when people were making decisions about policies such as the vaccine card, what would you say? What would you say, Ramona, if you had a seat at the table when they're developing this policy?
Okay, Charlotte, that's quite a question. I don't understand the extent to which the vaccine card or passport, whatever they're calling it, what is the extent of the information which they are disclosing? Because for me, I don't have any such, I don't even have a health card as of now because of my status here. And so I'm not affected by that. But even if you did have this kind of, I'm thinking of it in a positive way, that if you need to be, like, you are in a particular location, for example, and then you have your family doctor and your records or whatever, and so if you suffer from some kind of health issue, then you could be dealt with in a proper way. What if you relocated somewhere else and that information was required immediately for some kind of emergency? And we know that as seniors, that we might be, having need of such kind of services suddenly. So then I feel that having this kind of information at a glance is a positive thing, that the medical authorities would be able to access everything about you. If that is what they're saying, the passport gives you an insight into, then I don't think it should be considered in a negative way at all. I mean, what kind of use negatively could someone make by knowing your medical issues and the kind of medication that you're on? How could they misuse that information? If you're thinking of identity theft, then no one wants to do that, right? No one wants to take on somebody else's health issues and the medicines they use. And so I really feel that there's no point in making a very big issue of this. And I feel that, yes, you have this passport and it's useful in various ways. If you're thinking of travel, then you would be not only safer, but also ensuring the safety of other passengers. When you have this passport at a glance, the authorities could, allow you to travel or not. And the same goes for entry into various establishments or restaurants, which are now opening up. So I think it's a good thing to have these passports. That is my opinion.
Did you have a comment about what can be seen, Andrew? That's a question a lot of people have is what can people see?
Yeah, I can respond to what Ramona's just mentioned there, is that, people, when they're presented with something new, and especially if it's something to do with their own personal information, and health information is very private for people, is that people do get anxious, irrespective of whether the particular app is presenting information that is not very personal, to be honest. So when the QR code is scanned, it just basically comes up that, yeah, you've been vaccinated, right? It's not coming up with the details that are on the Health Gateway app, which Hannah mentioned. However, people understanding of that can be, kind of limited. I've done a lot of research of people's understanding of technologies, and even very simple technologies can be understood in very many different ways, and people's insights into them can be quite different. So we shouldn't underestimate that people's anxieties around the technologies, and that these are if people are uncomfortable with it, whatever the reason, then we've got to take that seriously. And I think that communication and explaining it to people in clear ways hasn't been done right. Certainly not by this government. And it's sort of the thing that Seniors 411 has been involved in. And that's the sort of thing which Hannah alluded to, that it's seniors organizations, families and friends, etc., who've been picking up the pieces around this, while at the same time, people have been very anxious about it. So that's where I'm saying that things could have been handled better.
So we have information that can help people, that they don't have to wait 3 years for the book to be presented, that this study is available. It's available through the STAR. How do people get in touch with STAR?
Well, you can easily just Google STAR Institute SFU. You will find lots of things on there which are of value, because most of our work is community oriented. We put a lot of stuff out which is meant to be read by a wide audience. We're increasingly developing our community outreach stuff as well. So you can access stuff by Googling, you have to be able to do that in order to find out STAR Institute stuff at SFU. But equally, there's information is available via 411 as well, either in person, physically, or via the 411 website.
I just posted in the chat the STAR Institute website, and then the second link is directly will take you to the study or evaluation study. But also, if you would like a physical copy, please come see me at 411. I'm able to provide a physical copy of that report as well. If you have any questions or if you want to share any information with me, If you want to vent, I'm all ears. I love listening to people. So yeah, if please feel free to reach out to me I'm always at 411. I will also put down my contact information in the chat. I'm not sure how that gets shared, but I will put it in there in case people want to reach out. I will also share my cell phone number. I know some people prefer to talk on the phone rather than send emails. So I'm available at all channels.
Okay, and then the 411 Senior Center Society is the formal name of 411. If you just dial basic 411, you'll get the main information, but it's the 411 Senior Center Society, and it's located at 333 Terminal Avenue. You can call there and you can make an appointment to come in. There are some drop-in hours for using the computer. They do have computers available for people who don't have a computer at home. And the information and resource center at the 411 Senior Center serves seniors across the country, and within our province, having a focus for the province of British Columbia. People who, if you're having difficulty with immigration papers, learning how to get your documents together for the income tax, how to access housing services, all those are things that are free services that you can get by dropping in at the 411 Senior Center or phoning us. And right at that point, I'm embarrassed to say I don't have the phone number in my memory, but when you ask Google, phone the 411 Senior Center Society, it will locate the number, or it will, if you have a smartphone, it'll call them. But in the notes, when we have our podcast notes, this information will be in the notes when you look at our podcast on any of the centers, places where it's found, poweredbyage.com, Spotify, iTunes, and even YouTube. So thank you for being with us today. Thank you for seeing ways that you could have your say. You see that there is a research institute that is there, not parachuting in to find out what you're doing, but reaching out and even putting people boots on the ground in the center to not just find out the answers they want, but to find out how technology is affecting seniors, what's on people's wish lists, and what can really make this an age-friendly, not only an age-friendly city, but an age-friendly world for older people and intergenerationally throughout all the generations. Because someone said, if you make a world that's good for 8-year-olds and 80-year-olds, it will serve everyone. So that is part of the mandate for our program. So I'll see you again next week at 1.